Canada is in the middle of a procurement review that will determine what fighter aircraft its Air Force flies for the next several decades. The contract in question involves 88 fifth-generation F-35A fighters at a total cost of 14.2 billion Canadian dollars, approximately $161 million per aircraft. Canada selected the F-35A in March 2022 to replace its aging F-18 fleet. Payments have already been made on the first 16 aircraft, and additional payments for long lead items on 14 more were initiated in February 2024. Despite all of that, Canadian Defence Minister David McGuinty confirmed in 2026 that the review of the purchase is still ongoing, with no timeline given for a final decision, and that procurement from non-U.S. sources is actively under consideration. This video will walk through how Canada arrived at this position, who the key figures are, what the technical and political variables look like, and what the decision, in whichever direction it goes, means for Canadian defense policy and its relationships with both the United States and its other allies. The starting point is March 2022. Canada had been deliberating over its fighter replacement for years. The process had been delayed, restarted, and complicated by shifting political priorities across multiple governments. The F-35A was ultimately selected as the result of a formal evaluation process, with 88 aircraft planned to replace the CF-18 Hornet fleet. One of the factors in the F-35 selection was interoperability. The U.S. Air Force deploys F-35s as the backbone of its air defense fleet in Alaska, and operating a common platform alongside American forces in the Arctic and North American aerospace defense context provided a concrete operational rationale beyond raw performance metrics. That rationale has not disappeared. What has changed is the political context surrounding the American relationship. From early 2025, under the Trump administration, Canada-U.S. relations deteriorated sharply across multiple dimensions: trade, diplomatic tone, and defense burden-sharing expectations. That deterioration shifted public opinion and significant portions of the Canadian political class toward reducing reliance on the United States as a defense supplier. The F-35 review, originally scheduled to conclude around September 2025, was extended past that deadline as the government assessed its options. McGuinty's public framing that Canada was taking the necessary time to study the question of the fighter fleet very carefully reflects a decision-making environment in which the political and strategic dimensions of the choice have become as significant as the technical ones. The leading alternative that emerged from that reassessment was the Gripen EF, a fourth-generation fighter produced by the Swedish company SAAB. In April 2025, the Canadian Defence Ministry was reported to be holding talks with SAAB about a possible Gripen procurement. The Gripen carries distinct political advantages in the current environment. It is a non-U.S. platform produced by a NATO-aligned but non-American defense manufacturer, and its procurement would reduce Canada's dependence on American supply chains and political goodwill for fleet maintenance and upgrades. However, internal ministry evaluation data, released approximately 8 months after those talks began, told a different story on the technical side. Under the Future Fighter Capability Project tender criteria, the F-35A scored 57.1 out of a possible 60 points, a 95% score. The Gripen EF scored 19.8 points out of 60 to 33%. The gap between the two platforms widened significantly once operational criteria were applied rather than baseline specifications. That outcome is consistent with how the F-35 has performed in comparable evaluations in other countries. Belgium, Finland, and Switzerland all conducted competitive fighter procurement processes in recent years, and all three selected the F-35A over European competitors, including the Rafale, Eurofighter, and Gripen, by similarly large margins. the pattern across multiple independent national evaluations points to a consistent technical gap between the F-35 and the available European alternatives. Major General Chris McKenna, the commander of 1 Canadian Air Division, has been among the senior military voices making the operational case for the F-35. His stated concern centers on the threat environment. Both China and Russia operate 5th-generation fighter aircraft, and McKenna's position is that no other Western platform currently available provides a peer-level capability against those systems. The F-35 is currently the only NATO-compatible 5th-generation fighter in production anywhere in the world, which gives it a structural advantage that the tender scores reflect and that the Gripen, as a 4th-generation design, cannot match regardless of its other merits. A third option entered the picture in April 2026, when it was confirmed that the United Kingdom, Japan, and Italy were coordinating plans to include Canada in the Global Combat Air Program, known as GCAP. GCAP is a next-generation fighter development program targeting operational service by 2035. Canadian participation would mean contributing to the development of a platform that goes beyond the F-35's current Block 4 configuration in some respects, though whether it would match an enhanced Block 4 F-35A in overall capability remains an open question. What GCAP would provide is a non-U.S. pathway to a genuine 5th-generation or beyond 5th-generation aircraft, addressing the political concern about American dependency while not accepting the technical downgrade that a Gripen procurement would represent. Consider the first scenario. Canada reduces its F-35 order from 88 to approximately 30 aircraft and supplements or eventually replaces the remainder through GCAP participation. The 30 F-35s cover the most immediate interoperability requirements with U.S. forces in Alaska and NORAD operations, while GCAP provides a longer-term, sovereign-aligned capability pathway. This scenario manages both the political pressure to reduce U.S. dependence and the military requirement for a high-end fighter, but it introduces a decade-long capability gap between retiring CF-18s and GCA delivery, and depends on a multinational development program meeting its 2035 timeline, which is not guaranteed. In the second scenario, the political pressure to diversify away from U.S. suppliers eases as Canada-U.S. relations stabilize under a different diplomatic dynamic, and Canada proceeds with a modified but substantial F-35 order while deferring a GCA decision. In that case, the Canadian Air Force gets the platform its senior commanders have assessed as operationally necessary, interoperability with U.S. Arctic defense is preserved, and the financial exposure from the already committed payments is not wasted. Watch for 3 things. First, whether McGuinty or his ministry sets any new target date for concluding the review. Second, whether Canada formally enters GCAP discussions and on what terms, since the structure of any partnership agreement would clarify whether GCAP is being treated as a replacement option or a complement to a reduced F-35 buy. Third, whether the internal tender scores become a public factor in the political debate, or most likely to produce a compromise that satisfies neither fully.